Hey there, everyone. I'm Ben for Cinema Gulp, and welcome to our discussion of the Banshees of Inisherin. Joining me for this open discussion is Kat from the Phantasmagorium Show. Hey, Kat.
Hey, Ben.
Good to hear your voice again. Welcome back to Cinema Gulp. We love having you on. This is kind of a long time in the making. I know the movie's making the awards circuit and all that stuff, and it's been out a while, but I'm glad we finally get to talk about it. I think you liked it as much as I did, maybe more. But if people haven't seen this movie, it's written and directed by, to me, just an absolute brilliant writer-director, a playwright first and foremost, and shows in his work. But this is his latest film with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, who just, is there a better on-screen duo ever? I don't know. Give me some opening thoughts, Kat.
I really love this movie because each of his films have some type of absurdist element to it. This one's doesn't feel natural to the story, and that just made it seem even weirder, and I was just therefore gripped from start to finish. I can see, the parallels with what he's doing with the Irish Civil War and all that. And yeah, it's a drama, but it's got a lot of humor in it because it's just these two. I mean, within Bruges, that's outright comedy where they're just trying to outstage each other the whole way through. This one,
a dark comedy caper type thing, yeah.
Yeah, this one I genuinely didn't know where the story was going because it's okay, so you don't want to talk to him anymore. I'm assuming there's something else deeper going on, maybe. And a couple of times they imply that there might be, but then there's sort of not. And it just kind of has this fun back and forth, and it's kind of funny because on the one hand, you kind of agree with Brendan Gleeson that this guy Padraig is really boring because he's very
dim, dull, yeah.
Yeah, very dull and very dim. Even though his sister would say that everybody on the island's pretty dull. I really like this one.
Yeah, the tagline for this movie was "Everything was fine yesterday," and I love that Martin McDonagh just took an idea like everything was fine yesterday and just built a story based off that. It's so goddamn simple. It's just the simplest of premises with obviously a brilliant screenplay and extremely fleshed out characters. That's what I love about McDonagh so much. And this is one of my favorite of his because of the simplicity of it. I would say Seven Psychopaths probably being his weakest. Not to say it's bad. I think he's incredible in everything that he writes and directs. And this one, the most though, goes back to his I haven't read any of his plays, but he was a playwright in the 90s. He did something called The Pillow Man, Hangmen, Very, Very, Very Dark Matter. So he was a playwright first. And would you agree that this one kind of showcases that this almost could be a play?
Yeah, the whole thing feels basically like that. It only takes place at a couple of locations anyway. And it's just because the whole thing is why aren't you talking to me? It's just a whole dialogue back and forth. Whereas, In Bruges definitely utilizes its setting a lot for its story. And a lot of its, humor beats. Seven Psychopaths is a lot more physical in a way, whereas, and then Three Billboards is, that one. This one's more of it does feel sort of like a one-room play type story.
I love how, you mentioned it takes place kind of with the backdrop of the Irish Civil War and how close the island of Inisherin is to everything, where you can visually see what's happening in the war, and obviously you can hear it. But just to let people know quickly, this story is just I went into it knowing zero. I didn't want to know anything. All you had to you sold me with Martin McDonagh and the team from In Bruges coming back together. I didn't even know it was a period piece, Kat. The trailers they show you a remote island, but I didn't even know it was a period piece. So everything to me was unfolding as the movie started to unfold. And then there's just a great little glimpse of a newspaper, and then you see the time and you're oh, okay, well now I know when it takes place. It's interesting that islands like this existed where you could potentially get by in such a hard time for Ireland, where you can just get by as a farmer or as a pub owner or whatever, and it looks like everyone just has this very normal, routine life that keeps them all sort of like as the sister says, kind of, I keep saying dim, kind of dull, because that's life there. There's not much to grasp onto. So it makes sense that he would write a story like this, where just kind of the town smart musician and the town kind of dumbass formed this weird kind of relationship. And then one day Cullum just goes, I can't do this anymore.
I did notice a couple of times that, the first time he goes to the church the first time that Cullum goes there and talks to the pastor in the confessional, and he asks him, "What, are you in despair or something?" And he kind of, swats it aside. But then later in the movie, he goes back and he says, "Is it the despair again?" And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe there's something more to this other than just being dull. It's like, yeah, he can artwork and stuff, sure. And he's got that all over his house, and he's right. Who wants to hear a guy ramble on for 2 hours about what's in his pony shite? But they kind of hit their mind, like kind of like when he shows up in town and he tells them, never talk to me again. But when he sees the constable punch Padraic out in the street, he helps him up and helps him ride back home. So it's like he's not entirely trying to be a jerk about it, even though everybody kind of accuses him of being childish about it. I just found that the whole threatening to cut off his own fingers was a different level of absurdity. Because like with Seven Psychopaths, for instance, okay, you got Christopher Walken and Sam Rockwell running this racket where they kidnap dogs from dog parks and then go to collect the reward. And you have Colin Farrell playing the typical stereotypical drunk screenwriter who can't write for shit. And that just lends itself to absurdity because it's an absurd story. Whereas here, it's a drama, and it's like, oh, they don't want to talk to each other. But once he says, "I want to cut my fingers off," I thought, okay, this is just getting a little weird. And to me, it didn't quite fit this other very grounded type of story, which is why I was just more riveted by it. Because I'm like, I really don't know. Is like this guy for real? And when he finally does it, I was probably the only person in the theater who was laughing. I thought it was hysterical that he actually did it. And then,
my theater was laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, he throws it at the door, and I'm thinking. And then Padre tries to defend it. He's like, "He didn't throw it at me." It's like, So I was like, man, this is really weird, especially since he wants to be a musician. And if it gets to the point where he's just like shaking the violin since he can't actually play it anymore. But then you have other surprises in it, like the so-called village idiot played by Barry Keoghan, who's
he's so good.
Yeah, and he's really good because he's not actually an idiot. He's actually a really nice guy. Of course, Padraic is stupid and assumes that, oh, he must have just accidentally drowned. It's like, no, dude. That's why he was asking your sister why she was single, because at the beginning of the movie, he's like, why haven't you ever dated anybody? Because he's like, going fishing, as it were. He's trying to figure it out. He's just asking her. He's depressed because she rejects him. He's upset because Padraic turns out to be a jackass. And then
so heartbreaking when he goes.
It is.
There goes that dream. It's just devastating.
It is, and it's like I just kind of want to like bitch slap Padraic for that. It's like, dude, do you not see what's going on? But he can't because he's dead. But then you feel bad for him because of what happens to Jenny.
To piggyback off, you doing a really great rundown of McDonagh's actual films. Which I think he brings out the best in Colin Farrell. Hands down. I don't think there's any question. He's one of those guys. He's very Tarantino-ish, where he can bring an actor to the forefront where maybe they wouldn't have been. Colin Farrell's a great actor, and no matter what he's in, with the exception of them trying to make him an action star in the early aughts. Not his fault. You take the work you get when you're a kid. But the dynamic of Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell in this echoes a lot of In Bruges. Like, Brendan Gleeson is the more seasoned of the two, and Colin Farrell, he was 12 years younger than he is now, so he was kind of dim-witted in that one, where he's like, "Oh, I just went to the pub, I had 4 pints of beer." He's like brushing his teeth while he's talking. He's kind of like a dim-witted guy in that one too. They play off each other so good that I've actually seen them doing like interview circuits where they go out to talk about this movie together. It gave me everything I wanted, because In Bruges was my favorite film of 2008, and seeing this kind of trio back together, with Carrie Coden as the sister. Oh, dude, like, she kind of steals the movie. The standout of this movie has got to be David Pierce, who plays the priest. Holy shit. It's so
that was great.
That's where I was like, okay, this movie, it's a drama comedy, but it definitely knows when to lean into the comedy.
I especially love it when Padraic just kind of nudges the priest and he asks him to put in a word for him. I'm like, no, I see where this is going. No,
Padraic just never gets it, and I kind of like that. He doesn't understand what happened, and us as an audience, like, we get it, but we still don't get it because we feel bad for him. It's like, that's his best friend, and he didn't understand that he was kind of being used to make Colm feel better about himself. Like that's the thing. I think sometimes you attach yourself to someone who you think is lesser than you, and then it makes you feel better for a while, but then you get an epiphany of some sort where you're like, well, I can't move on. I need to move on and hang out with more of my own class of people or whatever. And he just did it in such a cutthroat way, like that's how the movie
Well,
starts.
yeah, because he even apologizes for it the next day.
Yeah,
Saying,
saying
"Yeah,
I went a little too harsh on you the first beat. Yeah, but it's too late. He's already freaked him out.
And then you have the other subplot where the sister is trying to get a job on the mainland, and you have the super nosy woman at the post office. It's like being very judgmental the whole time, and it's like, it's not your mail. You don't really have a right to go through it, and it's like you're really going to be a jerk to her and everybody else, and get upset when they don't share their secrets with you or their personal life. It's like, really?
Yeah, I don't know who the lady is that plays. What is it, Mrs. McCormick? Is that the like creepy, looked like a witch lady?
The Banshee.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like she's so scary. Like they should put her in horror movies.
Yeah, that's the other character though. Yeah, she's that was funny. Yeah, and I was surprised that Padraic says that his sister hides behind the wall when she comes walking by. It's like, oh, if that's the case, then how did she end up inside their house for tea?
Yeah. That scene didn't make much sense to me. She looked like she was happy to see her, and then they give you that line of dialogue. And I'm like, huh, okay.
I also wonder what she wanted to tell the sister, because right before Dominic shows up to say, there goes that dream. Before that scene, she sees Mrs. McCormick, whatever, on the other side of the lake, and McCormick is like beckoning her to come over.
Oh, I couldn't tell if she was just waving or not.
She kind of started as a wave, but then they kind of zoomed the camera in, not too close, but a little bit, and you can see she's kind of beckoning. And I'm like,
oh,
because she made that prediction that one person or one thing, a person or living soul is going to die by the end of the week, possibly two, which ends up coming true. But
yeah, with Dominic and our sweet beloved Jenny. I love that miniature donkey. That was one of the I actually do tear up when I'm in the theater if something catches me off guard. And I was watching this with Josh and Joanne, and I think all three of us did, because I just didn't see it coming. And then
I wasn't sure what, like, I could tell when the music was setting in when he's starting to walk around the corner that he's gonna, but I wasn't sure what. It's like, okay, something bad's gonna be there, but well, what could it be? Because I saw the blood, and it's like, okay, so it's this guy's fingers, but what is it?
Oh God, when you find out, it's almost. It's comical that that's what she died from, was the fingers, but that sets the rest of the movie up, where Colin Farrell, that's where he completely shifts and does become that interesting guy. That brings me to, I love that. All the dialogue in this movie is great, but how good, first of all, Colin Farrell is fantastic in this scene, but the dialogue of, when he finds out from Colm's like, I want to be remembered. Who's going to remember you? Who's going to remember your sister? And he's like, well, I'm nice. And he's like, I'll remember somebody because they're nice. I remember talking to Joanne after this movie about that scene. And I love that exchange where, yeah, like I definitely will remember nice people for being nice, absolutely, and it gives you that insight in exactly where Colm is coming from. But then when he hears that, and then obviously he says, that's the most interesting he's ever been. I like him again. But they kind of throw that away, unfortunately. And they don't really revisit the fact that he's like, oh, I like him again now.
They did have they kind of revisit a little bit in that one scene where Padraic kind of storms into Colm's house, and he starts having like a real conversation with him, and it seems like Colm is coming around. And it's like, oh, okay, they've gotten over it. But then when he reveals how he sent his musician packing.
Yep.
In the hilarious twist of irony, you could tell that's really what pushed Colm back over the edge to finish. And it's funny because right when Padraic leaves, the dog grabs the shears and takes him outside.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Are you doing that because you don't want him to make a mess in the house, or are you doing that to try and stop him from doing it at all?
Yeah, I love that. There's so many great animal actors in this. Fun fact, Colin Farrell was kicked by Jenny the donkey in one of the behind the scenes. He was kicked by Jenny the donkey while in the scene where he's feeding her, and he was bit by the dog. So he's being like led astray by certain, he's trying to figure out a way, like, what is it I need to do? Like, maybe I can be what this guy wants me to be. So yeah, when he goes into the house, he's very agile about everything, and he's little too aggressive. And when he does the bar scene where he's saying like, I'll remember people because they're nice, like the
Right.
very next time he sees Calm is when he's on the beach, and he goes, "Hey, I apologize, I don't remember any of that," or whatever. And he's just like, "Why can't you just leave me alone?" That's part threw me off, because the last time we saw Calm before that, he was saying, "I think I like him again."
The very fact that he doesn't remember and is trying to apologize for
Yeah,
something
you might
he
be right.
actually
Yeah.
liked, which Colm actually liked, and he's
Yeah,
like,
you're
oh,
right.
so it's not that he changed, it's just that he's, because he does tell the sister at one point that he's more interesting when he's drunk than when he's sober. But that's, I've had friends like that too. Like the basis of their friendship is clearly that they both would happen to be walking into the pub at the same time, and so they just started striking up a conversation or whatever, and that's how that friendship started. And I met a lot of friends like that on the bus down at college, where you only see them on the bus, never see them anywhere else. And then there would be times where I wouldn't see him for 4 or 5 years, and then I see him again, and it's like, oh hey, hi,
Oh, I'm 100% with you. I've when I lived down in San Clemente, like I would only know people because we would go to the bar, and we would have great conversations, great rapport, everything like that. And then when we decide to branch out and go, "Hey, let's go do something. Hey, do you want to join such and such? We're going out to do this." We have nothing to talk about sober, or outside of the bar. I guess that's what it's kind of going for. But yeah, I think you're right though. Like the fact that Calm like realized he didn't even know he said that. So how interesting can he really be? You
And
know?
yet at the very end of the movie, in the final scene, Colm seems to be over it and trying to engage Padraig in conversation. And Padraig's like, "Well, no, it's not over, because if you were in your house when it was, or if you stayed in your house when it was burning down, it would have been over." And he still thanks him for saving the dog, but you could tell that Colm was kind of interested in talking to him again. Kind of like they went through this whole civil war of their own, and it's like, okay, it's over, but Padraig is like, "No, I can't do this anymore," or "I can't do this anymore with you." He's not willing to forgive him over the ridiculousness of what happened, which is kind of like, parallel for what's going on across the bay. Dominic wouldn't really forgive Drake either,
Yeah.
and for to drown himself. And then you have that other little bit where you find out that not only is Dominic's father beats him and tells him or whatever, but he tells about how he's got the job to go be the executioner across the bay, and he doesn't
Oh,
even know who it is he's executing. He's like, "What does it matter? I'm getting paid."
yeah. Yeah. His dad's
You
a real
know,
piece of work.
even though he wasn't there when Drake said he was going to burn the house down, he still knows that he did it. So it's like, if the movie were to have continued for another day, it's like, is he going to go try and arrest him? Or maybe Colm probably wouldn't press charges anyway. But it's
You
like,
got to give it up for that actor, though. He like
yeah,
was in the most vulnerable of vulnerable positions for a man to be in a movie, just like barreled over a chair, butt naked, with his wiener hanging out, passed out. It's like that's a lot. That's a lot. I think Jenny, the way
yeah,
the way Padraic, the way he responds to Jenny's death and kind of starts to go crazy and consider Calm sort of like an adversary. It made a lot of sense to me. Like the first time I watched it, I just felt sad for Jenny. I watched it again recently, and to me, the reason it hit him so hard, obviously Jenny was cute and sweet and a pet, but Jenny was kind of Piedric's real best friend, kind of the way Calm thought of Piedric thought of Jenny, where it's like, because there's a couple of really interesting scenes where Piedric is talking to Jenny, and he gets to be sort of the superior intellectual while
right,
he's talking to this donkey. And I feel like when the donkey dies, he lost something that was the significance of the death, was that now he lost sort of his person that he was, or his animal or whatever, his friend that he was smarter than. Do you think there's anything there with that? Like,
well, yeah, because his sister left him, and then Dominic's dead, and he's upset with Colm because Colm basically, albeit unintentionally, killed Jenny. But he always kept trying to bring Jenny into the house, and the sister never gonna have it. He is, like he said, the animals, of course, aren't gonna judge him or anything. They're not gonna
yeah.
like, everybody else kind of knows that Drake is really dim, but they don't care other than Colm. He does feel like that. It's like he's lost a family member.
Yeah, and he
Whereas,
takes Jenny to the pub and says, "Well, you can't come in. You got to stay out here." And he ties her up, and it's like he has that little bit of superiority over Jenny, where he doesn't have that over anybody else on this island.
that he doesn't really run anything in his life except for Jenny. That's the only thing that he kind of had real responsibility over. Like when the excuse he gives when he's writing the letter, "Oh, I can't join you because like who's gonna, I can't, I have nobody to take care of the animals because Dominic's dead," and he kind of writes about that casually. And it's like, no, the animals aren't the issue, especially now that Jenny's gone. It's like yeah, I kind of have more reason than ever to go to the mainland. Not that I can imagine him doing well there. Uh,
Yeah, I think he knows that too. I think he's
where,
scared of that. That's why he lies to her, in the I don't know if the letter's actually sent or not, but you hear the voiceover him talking where you could clearly tell he's scared. He doesn't want to go to the mainland. He would get eaten up there in 2 seconds.
yeah, whereas Colm is kind of like really bothered and shaken by Jenny's death, and that he caused it. Because again, I think it's not just because he killed the donkeys, because I think he even recognizes what that relationship was for Padraic.
Yep.
That's why he just sits there in his house and doesn't really stop him from trying to burn it down.
No,
It's
you're
like,
absolutely right. Yeah.
he is right, because it's like it's like I didn't want to do this. Just stop talking to me. And now it's like he's sitting there in the house thinking everything that's happened. It's like, wow, in the space of a week, this guy's lost me as his friend. He's lost his sister. He's now lost Jenny, and now he's completely lost his marbles. and and yet he feels bad about it, which prompts him to kind of come back around and try and talk to him at the end. But it's just, it's too late.
And I think he should. And I think the end result of the movie is that the smart one, Calm, he shouldn't have fucking gave so many stupid, ridiculous ultimatums to this whole situation. And that's what got Piedric to act the way he did. That got Jenny killed. So much of that stuff had to do with his extreme acts of these dumb ultimatums. And it's like, okay, are you like a tortured artist? Why are you coming up with these scenarios? Like, there's other ways. You could just let the dude fade away. It was really weird, and it leaves a lot to be desired with Calm's like actual, like, what was his end game with that? Is he dying? I mean, they never say that, and they make that
because that's why I thought the second time he went to see the priest, the priest wasn't as judgmental, and you could tell from the look in his eyes and the way he says it. He's like, "Is it the despair again?" Or I think I'm paraphrasing. He says, like, "Is it the despair again, or is it still the despair?" Something like that, implying that there actually was something going on. Like you said, he wants to be remembered. He's got all this art and stuff in his house. He's meeting these students now. Maybe it's just the depression setting in, and he's trying to leave something behind. And because Padraic is there literally every day to bug him and drag him down about these, pointless conversations, he's like hitting him with these ultimatums because he's trying to accomplish like one thing in his life that he feels is meaningful before, like maybe he was dying, or maybe he felt that way.
Yeah, I think maybe he felt that way. Yeah, but God, wouldn't you have killed to see just one of the conversations? I know the movie's great because it plays off the fact that you don't see any of these conversations with the two of them. I would love to have seen one scene where they just go into the bar together. Maybe it's the very last one they ever have. And maybe the movie opens up with Calm just looking at Piedric and going like, oh my God, I just want to know what they talked about together before they were adversaries.
If that's the kind of stuff he talked about every day, I can't imagine you would have put up with that for that long, unless he did, just because it's like, oh God, this guy's here again. So you just kind of like, you make I've done that before too, where you make friends with people on the bus where they talk about things I have absolutely no interest in, but because it's there and it's only like a 20 or 30-minute ride once a day, it's like, what the hell, I'll just listen to him and just encourage it or whatever.
Or the worst is you have someone that just says the same thing every time, where it's just like they're complaining about the same thing or just repeating the same thing. That shit gets annoying real fast. And that's the thing about the movie. If it was set somewhere else, like New York or I mean, even like London or something during the same time, it wouldn't have the same effect, because the whole point is like, what does anybody on this island talk about? Like they rarely.
That's what the sister. That's what pissed off the sister so much. She's like, "You're all dull. You're all fucking dull. Complaining about your stupid, your stupid, your little fancy, all this kind of crap that she's just kind of fed up with," which is ultimately why she leaves. I take it, even though you could tell it wasn't the easiest decision for her to leave. She knew she was going to miss her brother, and she still was kind of hopeful that he'll come to but he's not going to come.
This is just Martin McDonagh being a brilliant screenwriter. He builds her up in just these little small exchanges that she likes to read, and she's probably the smartest person. And Carrie Coden like does such a great job of portraying like how confident she is and how she does. Yeah, she was really disappointed when she didn't get to have that sherry with her brother in the bar, because she doesn't go out and do that much, like because she stays at home more, but she's like, you know what, I'll go out and do this. I was kind of bummed that they didn't get to have that drink together, you know. For me, if I have one knock on this movie, Kat, it's her departure happens really, really fast. And I'm not a huge fan of how she goes, you know, let's go home and talk. I got to tell you something. And you figure there's going to be this long conversation that she's eventually or very soon going to leave, but she's packing as they're when they get back to the house, she's packing and she walks out.
Well, that's because when they're on the road home, they pass Colm, who's just chopped off his other 4 fingers and thrown them at the door. And she's like, that's it. I can't. Like, this is too insane. I got to get out of here.
It just happens really quick where like she doesn't, they never have another tender moment together. She just leaves, you know, and
yeah,
then
like, yeah, because it's kind of like her leaving in a huff. You know, like she told, like after he cut off the first finger, and she says, or he's like, oh, maybe we could take it back. He's like, no, let's leave him the heck alone. You know, leave him alone. And now that it's happened again, and she doesn't really know why, and she's still yelling at him about it, she's like, okay, I'm done with this. And the last moment they kind of share is when she's on the boat and she looks back up at him and sees him standing way up there on the cliff, and she waves.
And one of the things we haven't mentioned, the cinematography of this movie. I know a lot of people say like, well, if you have a beautiful plush location, then it's all going to work out. No, this movie is fucking gorgeous. Like, it's so, for being like sort of a darker story, it's so bright and oh, I love the vibrant colors. I love the saturation. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, how they shot it is just absolutely wonderful.
I'd have to look more into it on what it was shot on, but it feels like film.
And even the opening shot in the sky, just overlooking and that's not just because of it's an aerial shot of this beautiful landscape, but you could tell from the lenses just what it does. Like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's breathtaking, and yeah, the location has a lot to do with it. I guess it was an island. It was like a northern island of Ireland, so not too far off from what it's supposed to be. I mean, I think that's the point of the whole movie, the simplicity of that lifestyle and the routine basis of it. Something as simple as just someone not talking to you anymore turns into this huge thing, you know?
Right, and that's why I also thought that even though Dominic is treated like the village idiot, he seems sharp enough that he could probably make it on the mainland, I thought.
Yeah,
I think he could really finagle his way in there, run some type of I figured he would be able to figure that out, because it's not so much that he's not dim. He's just kind of like he's got this weird physical tick, and
well, he's not dumb, but he's immature. He doesn't know how that dinner scene where he's at the dinner with them. He doesn't know how to consort properly. You know, like. Right. He's trying. He really likes the sister, but yet he's being a complete dick. You know,
and he doesn't realize it because he doesn't get how to have that type of conversation. And same thing when he goes to the bar on the first night with Padraic after Colm has already ended the friendship, and they're watching them play music, and he just kind of rudely shouts at them to play something nice that you could dance to, and they just kind of look at him like, what the hell's up with you?
He's also smart enough to know when Padraic's really drunk to go get the sister, right. So he's on top of things for the most part. I just think he's he's definitely the most tragic character in the movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
and then even the father at the end, when he finds his son dead, he kind of had a bit of a moment there, like
sort of
really, like, he looks at him and he seems to be kind of dumbstruck or something, like, oh my god, it's my son, and at the same time it's like, well, are you surprised?
Well, he just didn't he didn't give a shit. He's the cause of why his son is the way he is,
right? And the look on his face is like he doesn't seem to get that, even though he seems kind of bothered by floating dead in the water.
Well, again, this movie is all about like losing the person who you feel is inferior to you, I guess, like whether you get rid of that person or you lose that person. I mean, who knows, to the constable or the sheriff or whatever he's called, maybe losing his son, he lost the person he can kick around, so
yeah. And it's kind of like the sister didn't really have anybody other than her brother to really bond with or whatever.
She didn't need anybody. Like, that was the thing I liked about her character. She was the one like very independent character that wasn't doing things super extreme. She was just kind of under the radar looking after herself. It's so sad. Like, for Padraic, you just feel for him so much towards the end of the movie. And I love he just lets all the animals in the house now. There's the horse, like.
Yeah, and then it's also sad because it's like, okay, Colm has clearly come around at the end of this story, but you're not going to let this go.
No, now
And
he's
just
done
gonna
with
be a
him. It's-
bitter. Now he's just a bitter, angry person with
yeah,
no
tables have
friends.
turned. Tables have turned. Like I don't like him anymore. Like I just burned his fucking house down.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
where's he gonna live? I guess he doesn't really care anymore. Yeah. Okay, so this one, I put it up there with Three Billboards. I'm not sure which one I like better yet, but yeah, I put those two on the top, and I do like that. Martin says he wants to do another collaboration with them, and he says this time it won't take 14 years. so, so I rank them fourth. I would put In Bruges, third, Seven Psychopaths, second, and first. I'm still going back and forth between this and Three Billboards.
Nice, nice. Well, they're all good. They're
Yeah,
all
they're all good. It's like ranking it is almost superficial, but
no. I'm doing the same thing. I would have Seven Psychopaths last, though. I love it. Then I would probably I love Three Billboards so much. It was my favorite movie of 2017, but I got to go that one. And then I would say I still like In Bruges a little more than this one, but time will tell. So yeah. But Martin McDonough, do more movies. Don't wait so long. You're fantastic. This movie's fantastic. Best screenplay of the year for me. I don't know about you.
oh yeah,
Thank you for coming on and wanting to talk about it, Kat.
oh, of course.
Okay, you guys can find Kat currently doing, what is it called? Capes, Cowls, and what?
Crusaders.
Capes, Cowls, and Crusaders over at the Phantasmagorium show. Check that out. It's fun. I know it's on Wednesdays. I don't know if it's every Wednesday, but it's on Wednesdays. And
Yeah.
they just did Batman Forever. Next, I think they're gonna have to do it. Batman and Robin. Well, thanks so much, Kat. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you guys next time we drink your cinema.